Happy New Year. I know this isn't the first one, but it feels like the first one we've done this year. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So, we are at a gym, and the first few weeks of the year are always a little bit insane at a gym. Although, I did something. Our gym doesn't usually grow in the new year, but there's just a lot of activity in the new year. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of stuff, like everyone's back from vacation. You know, they've done all the things that they're going to do. They're now dealing with whatever stuff happened during the holiday, good and bad. And people have had tons of questions for us over the last few weeks, yeah? Mm-hmm. So I figured today we would just talk through some of the common questions we get, some of the stuff that we've kind of been dealing with. And I don't know, we'll see if we come up with something.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah? So I'm Coach Jay. I'm here with Coach Wendy.
What's up?
And Coach Katie.
Hi.
You can tell how fired up they are to be here.
Very fired up.
Yeah,
Definitely
so fired up.
Let's
Yes.
go. Let's do this.
All right, we each wrote down a couple of things that we had noticed. So who wants to start?
I can start.
Let's go. What do you have?
So one question that came up was, what do you do when you have tried multiple plans and you've had success? You were successful, you lost a whole bunch of weight, but you always seem to go back to where you always start. Like always.
Yeah.
So like, what do you do? Like different, right? Do you try another plan? Do you just stop trying and focus on something else? With the goal
you should
of
definitely just quit.
with the goal of still trying to lose the weight and being able to maintain.
Right.
So that was one big one that I had.
Yeah. That's a hit them with a big one right up front. Well, I have obviously my own opinions about it, but what do you think? What was your answer?
I froze. I was like, oh, you gotta think about this one. That's when we ran out of time.
I actually think this is much more common. Like a lot of times the folks that come in here, they have tried lots of different things. And so this is a really common thing. I was talking to somebody recently that had tried the vegan diet and they had tried the carnivore diet.
Wow.
So it was just like
Whoa.
the two extremes, like no meat and then all the meat. Nothing but meat. And
Wow.
I mean, and it was just all, in an attempt to lose weight. And what I kind of told her was like every diet works, but not every diet works for everybody. And so part of the goal is to find something that you can do today, but you can also do it for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Like, because ultimately, you can lose 20 pounds in 6 weeks, or you can lose 5 pounds in 6 weeks, and then 5 pounds in the next 6 weeks, and then, and find something that you can do forever, right? And then you don't have to fight the same battle over and over again, right? What do you think, Katie?
Yeah, I just think it's that is an experience that isn't, like, it can feel really frustrating because I feel like oftentimes these diets are marketed as like, everyone who does this thing succeeds. And so people are made to believe that if they don't succeed, then there's something wrong with them.
Yes.
And the reality is what we know is like 95% of people who try diets don't succeed in the long term. And that's pretty sobering. So yeah, I think it's like that feeling is real and it's super frustrating. And I can identify with it because I remember when I was going through my own recovery of disordered eating, I remember at one point getting to this place that like I now call recovery purgatory, which was this place where I wasn't like actively like binging and purging all the time like I was like in the worst of it, but it was like once or twice a week. And I thought that was just like the version of recovery that was mine, and that was just what it was going to be for the rest of my life. And I probably stayed there for like the better part of 10 years before I finally experienced like full recovery. And actually one of the reasons why I do what I do now is because I would like it not to take 10 years for other people. Yeah. So I can definitely like relate to that. And I mean, what I would probably say to that person is like, well, if you haven't found something that worked, then you haven't tried everything yet, right? Like
Yeah.
there's something still out there that like
Right.
you could try.
Yeah. For
But
sure.
I've done the same thing. Like, oh my goodness, like cabbage soup diet. I mean, all the like weird stuff,
Cabbage
right?
soup.
Like, ew. Yeah. Did you ever?
No.
Okay, don't ever try that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just like cabbage soup.
Yeah. Just like you just eat cabbage soup. That's it for days. Days and days.
It'd be like super gassy, I feel.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that was the one. That's like the standout. Those I'm never doing that again.
Yeah.
But we were even, I was thinking about this. We were talking about this like not that long ago about like, well, what was it that actually like changed things? And I can't even point to one thing, and like it drives me crazy because I wish I could.
Yeah.
But like one thing that was a big thing, it was like advice that I had heard that took me forever to implement was if you have a lot of food one night, say you binge one night, and for me it was always at night, in the morning, because you're feeling so much guilt and because your body is still full, the last thing that you want to do is eat food. But if you do, then it can start to like break that cycle, because if you don't, you can very easily like push to the end of the day, and now you're in that same boat of now I'm starving because I haven't eaten all day because I felt like I had to punish myself, and the cycle just continues and continues.
Yeah.
So that one, and then the one we were talking about the other day was like planning things in the morning that I was accountable to. Like, all right, well, I go on a walk with a friend in the morning, and I told her I was going to go, so I know if I binge tonight, I'm going to feel terrible tomorrow. I'm not going to want to do it. So. I'll just wait until after the walk.
Yeah.
And of course, after the walk, then you're not going to do it. But it's that kind of like, let me just put it off. Put it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for somebody else, it's going to be totally different. But I
Right.
think the point is like, what I had wished I had that I didn't, and now I hope to provide for other people, is like somebody who kind of like kept believing that there was recovery that was possible. Because it's so easy to like get hopeless and like lose that faith.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm assuming that the goal here was somebody was trying to lose weight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then, I do think that it is helpful to understand that, 95%, I don't know where these stats came from, but you like most people, over the course of a long enough time will gain the weight back that they lose. Right. So if you want to be in that 5%, then you're going to have to change your habits, right? It's not just about changing what you do today, but it's about changing what the long-term habit is. And, the better, I mean, I've done a lot of these diets as well. Like it forces you to change habits in the short term. And then you start to notice some of your long-term habits, right? Like this time of year, this always happens. When is this kind of weather, this always happens. When there's stress time at work, this always happens. And you have to start to address those. And there's no like specific like recommendation that's going to address all of those things for every person.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so like you have to really think about what are the habits that I'm developing outside of like whether I eat high protein or high carbs or more vegetables or whatever it is. What are the sort of habits that I'm developing, and how could those have contributed to where I am now? And, as I still think it's important to get quick wins. So trying something that, changes the immediate term is really important. But then you have to like focus more on what happens after you lose the 20 pounds.
Yeah.
It's like the 6 months after you lose the 20 pounds is more important than the 6 weeks or 3 months or whatever it took to get there.
Yeah.
Right? Because what happens is real life hits and you're like, great, now I can do all the things I used to do. And it's like, well, all the things you used to do got you to the point where you needed to lose 20 pounds. So if you don't change that, then you'll just be back there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, you were somebody who did experience that, right? Like, so once you did lose the weight, like what was it for you that helped you stay there? Like you are the 5%.
Well, most of it came down to like having a reason to lose weight that had nothing to do with my weight. Right. And it was just like, being able to do certain things at the gym, right? It's like, if I gain 25 pounds, I can't do whatever, a pull-up or maybe a handstand push-up, right? Not that those things are everything, but it's also like another guideline
Yeah.
that will make me go, actually, I don't feel that great.
Yeah.
You know, or my running starts to feel worse or whatever it is. And so it just, for me, it was changing the focus of what I was doing. And then it was like, well, okay, look, I don't want to like have pull-ups come up and then me just fail every time. So let me try not to get too far off track. And I started to just change, like put certain things in place that were just like the things I always do. And so one of those things was like, just a perfect example, like back when I was 300 pounds, I used to get, like sugary stuff in the morning.
Yeah.
Right. Like I would have, I wasn't drinking coffee at the time, but I had like, whatever, a bagel or like, something like high carb, high sugar, right? Or high fat, like bagel with cream cheese or like, maybe a Danish or something like that, right? That would be the thing I'd start my day off. No protein, right? And once I started losing weight, I basically made it a habit to have protein every morning, right? And then at some point, I just wasn't eating in the morning. That was an experiment. But anyways, like I have protein in the morning. And I found that if I'm going to eat anything, having either low carbohydrate or high protein or nothing actually made me feel better throughout the day. And so that just became something that stuck. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So even on days like, like the worst day, like whatever, hungover in Las Vegas, and like, I went to bed at 4:00 in the morning. I'm waking up at 7. I'm still not going to have pancakes because it just doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just a permanent thing now.
Yeah.
But it was different before. And then the other part is just I pay very close attention to how food makes me feel. And so that actually, like I've shortened the gap between, what I do and how I feel.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I gotta eat 7 pieces of pizza, I'm gonna feel crappy pretty quickly versus like 3 hours later or the next day. And it's like, I already feel crappy. Okay, great. So before I make that decision, let me make a different decision, right? So just little things like that.
Yeah.
I gotta say, for most people, and I've noticed this because I've been tracking my food really closely, when you are eating closer to your plan, your protein is much higher. And when you are kind of just eating whatever, you eat a lot less protein. So just the general habit of eating more protein makes a huge difference. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, those are just like little things. And look, I mean, like I'm not a, Instagram model. So, clearly I don't have like, I clearly don't have all the answers, but it's like, you lose 100 pounds, you manage to keep it off. You have to like change some things, right?
Yeah.
So.
I do think it's a timing that a lot get to them. Like I need to lose weight like as soon as possible.
Yeah.
But typically what I've seen, over the years of doing nutrition coaching, the most success stories that I've seen is when people lose weight slowly.
Yeah.
And those stories, they keep off the weight and they continue to make progress. But it didn't take them 4 months. It took them a year and a half, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you think about it like a year and a half, that is a long time, but it's really not. Like a year, you're quite fast.
Yeah.
So I think just the thought about like, oh, you're telling me that's going to take me more than 4 months for me to lose the weight and then also maintain it. Like, yeah, like you said, the hard work is maintaining the progress, right? And keeping up with it. At some point you'll back off a little, because your body you'll have a routine. You'll know exactly what to eat that day without even thinking about it. It's going to be a thing that you do without, thinking about it. But yeah, I think timing tends to get discouraging for a lot of people, I want to say.
Getting slim quick is not a good idea.
No.
Like it's something you can do and you can get yourself to a certain point, but it's like we were talking about it the other day. What is the lottery? Like $1 billion or something? Winning that much money without having earned the earned the right to have it, it means that you have so much resources that it actually kind of messes you up, right? And most lottery winners end up depressed, they end up broke. Like a lot of bad things happen to lottery winners versus like, a billionaire who had to like earn the money. it's like they don't tend to lose the money.
Yeah.
Now depression is a different thing, but
Yeah.
you get what I'm saying, right?
Right.
And so it's like having the result without the work,
Yeah.
it actually discounts the result. And so you don't get to keep it.
Yeah.
Where, you know, it's like, I mean, we were talking about it. I would not want to win the lottery. Like, you would start to question everything in life. And it's like, you have this goal of losing 50 pounds and you could snap your fingers and have it tomorrow. You would not want that.
Yeah.
Like
I want to win the lottery. You can give your winnings to me. That'd be fine.
I wouldn't wish that on you. But yeah, I think that's just like, you're right. Like, if it takes you a year and a half to lose the 20 pounds, you are going to keep it off. Because you've developed the habits over time that will get you there. It didn't feel like you were like, I gotta get it, you know?
Yeah.
So we've touched, like, it's interesting because, like, we've talked about a few things that could be the source of part of the challenge. One being, like you had mentioned, having a bigger sense of purpose beyond losing the weight is a big one. A supportive community. Like, I always get curious about people's support. Like, who have you got on your side? Are you trying to do this solo? Because there have been very few times where I've seen people successful solo, especially someone who's got like a long history of struggling. There's other people out there too who you can get support from. Then there's like the deficiency side of things. Of like, maybe you're just not getting enough protein. I remember, like, funny story, accidentally falling into better nutrition habits because all the while I was in recovery, like, all the dietitians I saw never taught me how to eat well. They just taught me how to, like, eat pizza and not be afraid of it. But they never taught me, like, good nutrition. And I, like, stumbled into the paleo diet. That was when I first started CrossFit, and I was doing the same thing. I was like having cereal for breakfast, a bagel for lunch.
Yep.
Like, I wasn't eating many fruits and vegetables. And it wasn't until I tried paleo that I was like, oh crap, like, I can actually eat food and it feels good. And I actually have more energy and all this stuff. And it was like, so it became more like from a deficiency. Like, I wasn't getting enough protein, not getting enough micronutrients. And sometimes if we're deficient in one thing, it can cause us to crave stuff that's not great for us. Yeah. And then, but the side that we haven't talked about either is like the emotional side of, like, there's a million reasons why we eat food and why we turn to food. And, like, because it changes our physiology really fast. So if I'm feeling down or if I'm feeling stressed or I'm feeling some other kind of thing, and I've always used food as a way to escape that, well, food's really freaking effective at that. Like, that, congrats. Like, that's you trying to protect yourself and like help yourself out of a hard situation. And a lot of times, like, we don't always learn other ways to cope with those stresses or those emotions. And so sometimes it can come down to an issue of, like, what are your other coping skills? Like, it's fine to use food sometimes, but all the time is where you're going to get yourself into trouble. So, you know, I don't know. I think it's such a complicated question with, like, so many different avenues.
Yeah.
You know, I want to grab onto one thing you said. I actually think the easiest way is to set up your entire world to help you make the decisions that are going to serve you.
Yeah, the easiest way. Just
I think that's, no, I mean, like,
yeah. I see what you
because,
mean.
like, okay, so if you moved into whatever, let's say your goal was to lose weight and then you joined, like, some sort of commune where they just served you the food and they made you exercise every morning and, like, everyone was doing the same thing, then you would lose weight. Like that would be it. Now, that's extreme, but another example of this is, like, when I was over 300 pounds, every Sunday we would go and get a dozen bagels and, you know, with cream cheese, and we would eat bagels throughout the day and, like, watch football or whatever. And when I decided I'm not doing this anymore, you know, my wife came home with a dozen bagels one day and I was just like, we can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And it was like, so from then on, we didn't do that. Like, we just stopped having that be an option, right? And that was, a not very uncomfortable conversation I had to have with my wife, but it was just like, sometimes you have to have that conversation. And it's like, hey, you know, this is something that's really important to me, so let's change the environment to help support this, right? And then, hey, you know, also we get up at 5:30 in the morning and we work out every day, right? That's another way to sort of change the environment, right? We stop eating after 6 p.m., whatever rules that you have, right? so that your environment kind of supports what you want, so that even on your worst day, you have the environment that supports what you want, right? And again, like if you've tried everything, then clearly, you know, like you have the ability to, you know, exercise the discipline to make it work, but you do kind of have to set yourself up for success, right? And this is part of it. I mean, you come into a gym where there are a bunch of people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s who are in better shape than most people that you see. It's a great environment to help support that, right? And then if you can take some of that and create that at home, then even on your worst day, you don't have, you know, hot Cheetos to turn to, you know, no matter how upset you are. You have to actually get in your car and go do the thing, you know, to go get them.
Yeah.
Which, you know, some people will do that. That's totally fine. But it's like, now you've made it harder for you to do that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love this. I could go on. Okay, that made me think about like, I was like writing down some mindset habits for someone. And this idea of like setting up your environment is like, yeah, like what if you approached your own health and fat loss as like a full intervention, right? Like, okay, I'm going to adjust my movement this way. I'm going to adjust my food that way. And also mentally, I'm going to work on these habits. Like I think some of the ones I wrote down was like reframing. Are you reframing a few times a day? Are you doing some affirmations a few times a day? Are you questioning your like black and white thinking a few times a day? Like, are you practicing box breathing? And literally like write out these habits, and they all seem like, kind of woo woo. But if you attack this problem from like a full circle perspective, and you treat yourself as someone who's like worthy of this kind of intervention, like things can change. But you have to take it seriously.
Yeah. I also think that one thing that really helped, you were asking me about this, one thing that really helps is you make the commitment to the goal and you do not stop doing the thing until you get to that goal. And you don't have to commit to the timeline, you commit to the goal, right? And if you have a goal of, let's say, losing 40 pounds, right? Not only do you set the goal of losing 40 pounds, but you also set the goal of, I'm going to keep this 40 pounds off for 12 months, right? And you just go all in on that. And anything that happens between that day and the day you get to that goal is just feedback to that goal. It might take you, 12 months to lose 40 pounds, and then it might take you 4 years to figure out a way to keep it off, right? But you're going to live that life anyway. And it'd be better for you to do that than to lose the 40 pounds really fast and then have to gain it and then lose it again the next year and then gain it and lose it again the next year. You just start getting really frustrated. And so I think there's just like, have that level of commitment to, yes, I am going to do this. And I know it's going to take a lot longer than I thought. And I'm going to give myself a lot of grace to sort of make it happen.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great.
So really good question. I have another one here, but I know you guys have a list. What do you got here, Katie?
Oh, my first question is, let's see. I like both of these.
This is good.
These are questions.
Good pod right now.
Sorry, these are the questions that came up great. Okay, question 1: are carbs bad?
Yes. No.
I feel like so many people I talk to come in here are like, wait, you want me to do what? Eat a carb? I'm like, oh, right.
Yeah.
Are carbs bad? Let's talk about that, because that's actually one of the things when I talk to people on sales calls. They're like, oh yeah, I eat really good. I eat like low carb. And I'm just like, I mean, that's one way you can do it. Are carbs bad?
Nah.
Carbs?
Me love carbs.
Yeah.
No, totally. No, they're not. I don't think there are. I mean, I personally did come from a background where I thought carbs were bad. And this is through high school, right? You were told, and then when I say you were told, sometimes teachers, right, they will say like, oh yeah, if you eat bread, you'll get fat or whatever. Family members, friends, that's all I would hear, that carbs were bad. So for most of my high school year, I was afraid of eating bread because I would think that I was going to get fat. And I remember that year, I mean, I was like 115 pounds, super tiny. And I always wanted to play better. Like I wanted to be good at soccer, but I would always feel so weak, so weak, so weak. And I think during my cycle time, I would like on purpose not even eat sometimes because I'm like, no, I'm going to get more fat because I'm already bloated, right? So it definitely screwed with my mind. And I can relate to a lot of people that think that carbs are bad because you grew up thinking that carbs were bad. So then I joined the gym and, I remember I really wanted to get a strict pull-up, like so bad, like so bad. And I practiced and I wasn't getting nowhere close. And then I bump into the paleo diet, right? Now the paleo diet, it's high protein, just fruits and veggies or whatever. And I tried it for for a good month and it's just nothing. Like I just didn't really do much for me at all. And then I started tracking macros. And then that's when it changed completely. And so by the time that I was actually trying to get a pull-up, I was 115 pounds. When I got a pull-up, I was 125 pounds.
Wow.
So I was actually heavier, but I did get a pull-up. So, that was just like, to me, it was just like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So I can relate to a lot of those people that think that carbs are bad.
Yeah.
But they're not.
They are not.
They're not bad.
What do you think, Katie? Are
Yeah,
they bad?
no. I mean, they get a bad rap, and it's so funny because so many people come in with that. I eat healthy. I eat low carb or keto. I'm like, this is probably why you're here. They get a bad rap because there's a lot of carbs that are like we've talked about before, like hyper palatable, right? It's like super processed. They have very low nutritive value. Like they don't nourish us in any way, really. They also usually come with like a lot of fat and salt, and they're hard to stop eating. And so not that those carbs are bad to have all the time, but I think because there are a lot of carbs that are in that domain, all carbs then kind of like get a hit for it, There's an analogy there. Like, what's the phrase? Like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know why you would throw babies out with bathwater anyway. Don't do that either. But I think that's what happens is like, so I'm not going to eat potatoes. So I'm not going to eat rice. So I'm not going to eat all of these like carbs that we know are really nourishing. Like they actually provide us with really good nutrients and energy. They help us feel great. They like buffer stress. Like they're fantastic.
Yeah.
And oftentimes when people do eat them, like they usually feel a lot better.
Yeah.
And it's more sustainable. So are carbs bad? Absolutely not. There are ones that are probably better for your body in the long run than others.
Right.
But yeah, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've done a lot of like low carb diets, and we talked about when I was doing just all meat. And I think what it comes down to is like, I think just saying like, we have a saying in our house because our son started coming home talking about like, that's healthy, that's unhealthy. And I'm just like, there's no such thing as healthy or unhealthy. It's just food, right? Like, goldfish are not healthy or unhealthy. It's just a thing that you're eating, right? And I think when people think carbs are bad, it's just like it's this hammer, like, okay, I am just doing this because I'm this, by doing this one thing, it's going to solve this problem.
Yeah.
Right. And then they don't want to think about it anymore.
Yeah.
And like, I can absolutely relate to that.
Totally.
But the thing is like, this is part of what happens when you do the kind of workouts we do. It's just like, you can't not be aware of how food impacts you.
Yeah.
And so you start to notice all these other things. And it's just like, wow, I don't eat a lot of carbs. I don't sleep as well at night. I don't, I find myself dehydrated a little bit more. My performance on some of the workouts will suffer, right? Might be losing weight, but is that because I'm not eating carbs or because I'm eating more protein or because I'm eating less calories overall, right? And so it's just so easy to say like these things are bad. And like what's really interesting, so I'm eating a lot more carbs than I was 6 months ago. And I'm noticing that the big swings of like, like when I was eating low carb, I could only eat like a narrow band of things, right? But now that I'm eating more carbs, I can eat more things and have it not be like an issue, right? It doesn't impact my performance if we go out and have a beer, right? It doesn't impact what happens at the gym if I have a piece of cake the night before. It's like that stuff used to hit me like a truck. And now it's like, oh, I can do it. But in order to be able to handle that, I have to have awareness of how much carbohydrates I'm eating, right? And then how does that impact how much protein? I notice there'll be days like on Christmas, we had lasagna, carbohydrates and fat were through the roof.
Yeah.
And I would eat so much food.
Yeah.
And I was only eating half the amount of protein that I normally get. And I'm like, this is really interesting. So actually the thing is like carbs are not bad. It's the awareness that gets you.
Yeah.
It's like if you don't have the awareness, then that's what's going to get you. Most of the time, when you look at people's nutrition, you're both nutrition coaches. What is the number one thing you tell them they need more of?
Yeah, protein.
Protein, right? Most of the time, it's not that they're eating too much carbs. It's that they're not eating too much enough protein, right? And part of why low carb got popular is because you do low carb, you're forced to eat more protein. And then by eating more protein and working out, you put on more muscle, you tend to lose more fat. It's this like virtuous cycle, right? And so, yeah, that is absolutely not true. I actually think what I'm seeing for a lot of people, especially when they approach us, you ask them how much they're eating, and most of them are under eating.
Oh yeah.
Like
always.
most people are under eating. They under eat for like a period of time to the point where they reach out to us. And the truth is, before that period of time, they were overeating, right? And so now they're under eating, thinking that's what you're supposed to do. I'm only going to eat 1,400 calories a day. And then we tell them you need to eat more. And it's just like, what the hell? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, cool. What other questions you have?
Great. Okay. Speaking of protein, there's the question of protein is giving me some indigestion. Now what? Do I just stop? Do I lower the amount that I'm eating?
Does protein give you indigestion?
I mean, it can, but you would have to really overdo it for like really like, I don't know, like you would have, but I mean, maybe it's not protein, maybe it's something else. Cause I don't think it does.
Yeah.
I mean, it may, right? And it's rare when it's like an actual problem. I did have a client who we didn't even find out that this was a thing until this person went into the doctor's office and they did like a whole bunch of blood tests. And then, that person was sensitive to protein, like a specific protein, right?
Yeah.
But that rarely ever happens. But I would probably start off by asking how much protein first, right? And if it seems like okay, like how long has it been? Like if it's been going on for like a month, then maybe less, right? Or what sort of protein? Where is it red meat? Is it seafood? What sort of thing? So I would just kind of not completely say stop automatically. I would kind of like how long has it been going on, right? And then if it's been going on for like more than like 3-4 weeks, then I would start kind of seeing what specifically or what sort of maybe a specific protein where it doesn't go well or something like that. But I wouldn't completely say like no protein. Yeah. So that's where I would start to kind of cross things that it could be a potential problem.
Yeah. That's exactly what I would do. Like I get, if I have too much protein powder, that's not good.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're just like, oh, great, I'll get 150 grams of protein and I'm going to have 75 of it protein powder, that could potentially be an issue.
Yeah.
Right? But, like you said, it's just like, okay, let's write down what you're eating every day and let's eliminate these couple things that may cause you an issue, right? Okay, did that solve it? Yes, no. And, you have to and you almost have to give it like, somewhere between 3 to 5 days for you to actually like figure that out.
Yeah.
You know what? It's funny when people ask me stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, you should just quit. It's just like, because that's the implication. Oh, it just gives me indigestion. It's like, you see my shirt has all these excuses on it. It's just like, okay, so like, deal
with it.
It's like, I'm not saying deal with it, but it's just like, okay, so what do you do?
Yeah.
Right. And
I do think that's a real thing, especially like you said, like a lot of people undereat protein. And then when they add it back in, their protein does have a strong, it makes you feel full. For sure. It's a nice thing about it, I think. I don't like feeling hungry, but I think if you're not used to that, it can feel uncomfortable.
yeah, it's also like, what phase are you in? Is this in the first week
Right.
of you starting a new thing? Great. You need to give it at least 3-4 weeks before
Yeah.
you make any adjustments, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even in digestion, it's kind of like, I won't say like, if you have disaster pants, then maybe that's like, maybe you should be careful. But like,
Yeah.
if it's in the first 3-4 weeks, like most of the stuff is normal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Your body has to adjust. Like we
Yeah.
were saying, it takes 2 weeks to adjust to any change,
Yeah.
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you kind of have to kind of,
Dig and see what's happening.
yeah. I think it comes back to that awareness as well, is just like writing all the stuff down that you have and like that you're doing personally, because I eat a fuck ton of protein.
Yeah.
But the only way that works is if I work out.
Yeah.
It's like I use a lot of that to kind of rebuild my body after I break it down here at the gym. And if you've never worked out before and all of a sudden you're like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go 100 grams,
Hard on the
150
protein.
grams of protein, your body's like, what the hell's going on? So yeah.
Definitely a disaster
Yeah.
pants of that. Yeah.
All right. So I have another one here, and this is, maybe we'll end on this one. Okay. So I had a call today. And this was not a nutrition client. This was a regular, this was a business coaching client. And so I had asked them to do something, and they and it was just like really simple. Like I try to keep this stuff really simple. I was like, you need to talk to one person every day for 7 days, right? And part of why I make it really simple is because it's really straightforward. You either did it or you didn't do it. And it's not that it matters that much whether you did it. It matters what happens during the attempt. And so when I got on the call, they said, I only talked to 2 people. And I was like, well, that's not what we agreed. What happened? And they started to basically explain that they're just not sure this whole thing is going to work. And, I'm uncomfortable doing this, and this. And I'm thinking 10 steps down the road, and I'm just not sure, is this going to work for me? Maybe it only works for you. Maybe you're special. And the whole thing came down to this uncertainty and this fear that stopped her from even trying. And the reason I brought it up today is because I think this happens all the time when it comes to sort of nutrition, fitness, whatever. It's like people are so scared of either getting uncomfortable or, what if this fails again, whatever, that they just don't even try. And because they don't really try, they can't, they don't have to hold themselves accountable. They don't have to face the fact that maybe it actually won't work, right? And so they just avoid trying. Do you ever have this happened with your clients?
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
Yep.
So I'm really curious, because I had my own kind of, ways to approach this, but I'm really curious, somebody coming to you with this sort of thing, let's say that, you've asked them to follow a nutrition plan and track their food every day, and they come back to you a week later and they only tracked for 2 days. And you're like, well, what happened? And they're like, well, I'm just not sure this is going to work. I feel this and this and this and all this stuff. And it just is really clear that they are so scared of what might happen that they don't even try. So how do you handle that?
Yeah, I usually give a timeline, right? So we're going to try this for 3 weeks, 2 weeks, right?
Yep.
And it's probably going to suck the first few days, and you might think that, oh, this is not going to work. It may be that it's probably not going to work, right? But we won't know until we do it, right?
Yeah.
This might be the plan that's going to get you to your goals, and we're set. We don't need to try anything else.
Yeah.
So I think having a time frame does help to kind of, get motivated, right? Like, okay, I got 3 more days of this. Okay, I can stick with it, right? Or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's one way that I kind of frame it for people to get motivated to actually try and do the thing.
Yeah.
The other thing too, I said, okay, you fail. Like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Like, we won't really know. Like, I've learned so much just myself in general, nutrition, workouts, fitness, just in life by failing. That's how I learned, and this is why I'm here, because of all those times that I failed. So it's actually feedback when you fail, and then we can come up with a master plan if you fail. Great, this didn't work. Okay, so we'll try this instead.
Yeah.
So those are the two things that I tend to try and, you know, kind of talk about with them when this kind of situation pops up.
Yeah.
So it's okay to fail.
Yeah.
If we fail, great. Then we'll try X, Y, and Z. And time frame. Like, let's do this for 1 week.
Yeah.
Sometimes when, you know, they get very close, like they get like 6 days, right? They got 1 day left. We're like, we're going to try it again. This time we're going to try it for 7 days. You did it for 6 days. Great. We're going to go 7 days the next day.
Yeah.
So I actually have them try again a second time and see if they can hit 7 days.
Yeah.
And that's just, you know, it starts to build consistency, you know, just sticking to the plan a little bit more. So it does help. I do see a difference when we approach it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Katie, what do you do when this comes up?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's such a good question. And I feel like we always like change is hard. Like as humans, we always we have these great ideas, and then when push comes to shove, we just throw shit off the table. No, we default to our go-tos. Like we default to our common behaviors, right? And like as a coach, I expect that.
Yeah.
Like I'm expecting I'm going to give this person this thing. I'm expecting that they're probably going to default to their fallbacks. And it's like the more, like to your point about failing, is like the more I can do to like foster a growth mindset for them of like the expectation, like is this. Here's the plan. And if it doesn't go according to plan, like what's our first response? It's good. Okay, cool. Like what can I learn from that? It's not like, oh shoot, oh I'm like such a terrible. No, it's like it didn't work. Cool. Like why didn't it work?
Yeah.
Right, let's dig in there. Actually, I have a client where we're working on a skill, bar muscle up, right? A skill. And it's like, I said up front, like, we're going to try this 100 times. You're going to fail this 100 times. That's probably what's going to happen.
Right.
But our job is to be brave enough to try them and then wise enough to learn from it. That's it. Like that's the expectation, right?
Write that down.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. I think people need to practice failing.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that I've learned just working with folks is like, you have to practice failing.
Yeah.
Like people are so afraid to suck at stuff.
Yeah.
They're so afraid
Yeah.
that it's just like, I mean, you have to suck at stuff. Just accept that you're going to suck at it. You're going to miss it 100 times.
Yeah.
Katie actually helped me fail this on Tuesday.
Oh, yeah. We did. We practiced explicitly.
Yeah. I was practicing or trying to get a handstand attempt, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, "Do you know how to fail? Have you failed?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I actually never
No.
failed trying a handstand." She's like, "Let's get you to do that. Let's have you fail."
Yeah.
And it made a huge difference. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
the reason why I think I'm not like making progress with my handstand is because I'm afraid of falling down when up there, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I need to fall in order for me to get better. So, I mean, it totally makes sense.
Yeah. Well, that's what we used to use, the big mat to have people flip over.
Yeah.
so that
You
they
had
would
that
feel,
safety net.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's just it. I think people are so afraid of failure that they won't try stuff. And it's like, it's when you're coaching somebody, you see it.
Yeah.
And you're just like, let's just fail a bunch of times. Like there's 25 steps and the first 24 of them, you're going to get nothing. Like it's just going to be all failure.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like the practice is just showing up and doing the thing.
Right.
And in this case, it was like, look, like I don't care what you say to these people. You need to talk to 7 people in the next 7 days. You can say anything you want. You just need to have a conversation. Don't make everything about, it doesn't have to be perfect. And I think that's really it. Like, I think we fail so often. We mess so many things up that it just feels like it's fine. Like, yeah, okay. Like we tried something and everyone revolted against us. And so we decided not to do it. Right. I said something in a meeting and everyone started crying and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe that wasn't good. This is something that has actually happened. But like, But that's just it. Like, I'm so used to it that you're just like, okay, great. Like, something needs to get done. Let's face the hard part. Let's get to the failure part.
I think you're good at that. And I see it a lot in the workouts, especially when you're going to go for like a 1 rep max.
Yeah.
Like I can see like your attitude, like, okay, I might make this, I might not. And when you're stepping up, like you go for it, even though you might think that, oh yeah, I might fail this.
Yeah.
And then I saw that when you hit that previous PR with the deadlift, you failed the first time and then you tried a second time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You learned from the first time what you know, something that you did wrong or anything or something.
Yeah.
Second time you got it and it looked even better.
Yeah.
So it applies to pretty much everything.
Yeah.
You know, everything.
And I think this is the reason I brought this up. It's like really the essence of coaching is like teaching you how to practice and how to fail.
Yeah.
And if you practice and fail, like, you know, the person who's tried all the diets, it's like, well, what if you actually flipped that narrative and thought about it as like each one of those attempts was just a step towards getting to where you need to be.
Right.
Great. Now you've learned that vegan doesn't work for you or like super calorie restriction isn't good for you, right? Like, or losing all the weight in 6 weeks, that doesn't help, right? You are going to have Christmas and New Year's and all the other things that happen. So let's figure out something that will get you there.
Yeah.
And it's just, let's look at it as a step towards the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And, you know, maybe it's just you're going to take a longer time to figure it out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a good place for us to stop. Anything to add there?
Oh, that's great.
No.
Solid. All right. Well, appreciate you all joining us. If you have any questions, submit them for the next one. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye.
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 Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, we've got plenty of others. Go check out this one over here.